If you don't know what's going on with your cycle, you end up living a life feeling unprepared. You're unaware of your internal landscape and you end up making plans or doing activities that goes against your natural pattern. And that has health repercussions. Welcome to the Phoenix Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Kori Rae Kovacs, a registered nurse and reflector in human design on a soul mission to help women like you rise from life's ashes with abundant energy, purpose, and joy. Each week, we'll meet at the intersection of science, soul, and storytelling as we create a bridge between holistic women's health, the sacred feminine, and cyclical wisdom. You'll get tools and insights from experts and guests helping you to thrive in every area of your life. So go ahead and pull up a chair, grab your favorite crystal or cup of tea, and let's rise like phoenixes together. Hello, Phoenix friends. Welcome to episode 4 of the Phoenix Perspective Podcast. I'm so happy you're here. Today, we are riding this crimson wave and continuing our conversation on menstrual cycles. If you had a chance to listen to episode 3, we had this empowering and impactful conversation on the cultural view of periods and on period stigma and shame. It's a potent conversation. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one, make sure you go back and listen to it. But today, we are going to be talking about all the different phases of the menstrual cycle. So if you're brand spanking new to learning all about the phases of the menstrual cycle, maybe you don't know the difference between your luteal phase or your follicular phase or when is my ovulation, you are definitely in the right place. So in today's show, I'm going to introduce to you the foundational wisdom of the menstrual cycle. I'm going to share with you how your hormones shift through the month, how those shifts influence your energy, your emotions, and your intuition, and how to begin building a relationship with your feminine rhythm instead of fighting it every single month. This is truly your starting point for cyclical living or cyclical awareness, or even cycle syncing if that's something you're interested in. This is the greatest place for you to start. I'm going to be sharing information on how you can lead a more womb-led life through cyclical living. And I am honored that you are here as I walk you through some Womb Wisdom 101. So let's start off with this fact. Your cycle is more than just your period. So many times you'll hear women say, I'm on my cycle. But the truth is, you are always on your cycle throughout the entire month. Your period is actually just a small part of the magic that takes place within your body every single month. So, from your very first period, which is called menarche, until your last period, like postmenopause, your entire body is involved in a dance of hormones and signals and processes that operate on a very specific rhythm that takes about 28 days to complete. Your period, it's not even the main event of your cycle. It's actually just the outcome of you not getting pregnant that month. It's like the finale of your cycle. The entire cycle takes about 4 weeks to take place, and the period is kind of the end, but we mark it as the beginning. It's a good place to start because it is the most obvious thing, right? You start bleeding from your vagina, then yes, that's very obvious. And so yeah, you can mark it as day 1. So throughout the whole month, your uterus, your ovaries, your brain, your organs and cells, they're all undergoing several different changes in a relatively predictable pattern that is unique to you. Now, if you have irregular cycles or you have other challenges, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But even still, there are unique things that happen throughout the month that when you start paying attention to them and understanding those signs, then you can actually get more aware and predict your period when that comes with a little bit more accuracy. And you also just get to know yourself throughout the month. So, here is a simple analogy to help you understand the nature of your entire menstrual cycle. Temperate climates, like such as like what we have here in the Midwest United States. I live in Indiana. I live in a temperate climate here. But temperate climates have four distinct seasons, and each season has its predictable patterns with minor variations based on where you're located. The weather might change day to day, but you would expect summertime to be warm and sunny, and you would expect the wintertime to be cold and snowy. And then spring and fall is going to be somewhere in between and usually wet. Usually it's raining. But the thing about the seasons is that there are activities that are best suited for each season, right? The summertime is great for going swimming or having a barbecue, but you wouldn't expect to be going outside and going snowboarding, right? If you live here in Indiana, you're not going to be expecting to go snowboarding in the middle of July. The same thing applies to wintertime. Winter is awesome for building a snowman or for staying outside and being warm and cozy, but it's not really the best time for you to be going outside and having a picnic or riding your bikes. Your menstrual cycle throughout the month is just like that. It's just like an entire year of seasons, except it's compounded into 1 month. Like those four seasons, you have four different phases of your entire menstrual cycle, and each phase has its own superpowers. And then it also has its own challenges, just like the summer has its challenges and the winter has its challenges. Each season has its challenges. So do the phases of your cycles. When you get to know your phases and understand what's going on in your body, then you actually get to know how to better take care of yourself. It is important to understand that the patterns, they follow a general rhythm, but it's going to vary from person to person and even from decade to decade. Your periods are going to be very different in your 20s than they are going to be in your 40s. So even if you have regular cycles at one part in your life, it might have some variations. And so it's important to understand that the differences between the seasons here in Indiana and the seasons up in Maine or the seasons down in South America, right? Or in Central America. There's going to be variations between those seasons, and what you would expect during those different seasons is going to be different for each person. So when I talk about normal, right? I'm air quoting the heck out of this word here. Normal. When we talk about a normal menstrual cycle, we're just basing it on patterns that we see relative everywhere else and kind of what averages are and trying to distinguish the patterns between what is healthy, what is a healthy body doing, and what could actually indicate that there is some sort of health problems or challenges. So if I accidentally drop the word normal, doesn't mean that if you have a period that's outside of this that you're not normal. It just means that maybe there's a variation here. And the best thing to determine normal for you is to track your cycle. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but understand that what's normal for you can be a little bit different and outside of what the norms are for, saying 28-day cycle, ovulate on day 14, right? Most people actually don't follow those rules. Now, you might be asking, why do I need to understand the phases of my menstrual cycle? And I will counter that question with another question. Why do you need to know what the weather is like in each season? Well, because it helps you feel prepared, helps you make plans, and it helps you know how to care for yourself. Like, say you lived in a tropical climate, right? And then you didn't know that when you fly to Indiana and it's in December, that it's going to be 20 degrees outside, and you decided to just pack your t shirt and your shorts because that's what you typically wear. And then you walk outside and it's 20 degrees out, you're going to be really uncomfortable. You'll be freezing. And you potentially can get frostbite because that's a real threat to your body. So, if you don't know what's going on with your cycle, you end up living a life feeling unprepared. You're unaware of your internal landscape and you end up making plans or doing activities that goes against your natural pattern. And that has health repercussions. But it's something that I think is missing from the conversation of way we live modern society. Okay, we do not live in tune with the natural seasons outside of us. We don't live in tune with our internal seasons, and so we're just going, doing all the time, and we end up showing up in our days feeling very unprepared in half of our month. When you get to understand your menstrual cycle and you understand the phases and what that looks like for you, now you feel prepared. Now you can go out into your life and actually not feel like you're drowning all the time. Let's chat about each phase and the physical, mental, and spiritual changes that you navigate through every month. But before I get into the nitty gritty of the phases, I do have to caveat something. If you are currently taking hormonal birth control, you do not experience these four phases, at least hormonally speaking. You may notice slight variations from a kind of emotional or mental or spiritual connection, but physically speaking, you don't experience basically because you're not having a menstrual cycle. Synthetic hormones shut down your ovaries, so you do not produce your own estrogen or progesterone. And those hormones are what drive these phases. So, if you're on hormonal birth control, these phases are not going to apply to you. But I do encourage you to keep listening because if you decide to come off of birth control, then you'll want to know these things. I think these are really important for every woman to know whether she's taking birth control or not, whether she's pregnant or not. It's important to understand what your body is doing because we don't learn this growing up. You know, we get like 2 seconds that they tell us about the menstrual cycle in school and then that's it. But this is not that. This is way more fun. You're going to learn a little bit more about these phases in a much more fun and in-depth way. Remember that season analogy that I talked about a few moments ago when I spoke about the menstrual cycle being like the four seasons, right? Winter, spring, summer, fall. We are going to use that analogy a lot in this section. So keep that fresh in your mind. Maybe like, come up with that picture, that we used to have in elementary school about the four seasons. Like it was a circle and it was like a tree and it was the four seasons of the tree with the winter and the snows on the tree. And then the spring, it's got the little green leaves, and the summer, it's like big green leaves. And then in the fall, all the leaves are falling down, right? So keep that kind of picture in your mind as we go through these four phases. It will really help you and help you understand it a little bit more. Let's start with day one of your cycle, which is the first day of your period. That's when you first see bright red blood and you've got to take some sort of action to manage your flow, whether you're using a pad or a tampon or wearing period underwear. You've got to do something about it, right? So we're not just talking about spotting here. We're talking about bright red blood. That's day one. Think of this phase as your inner winter phase or your new moon phase if you want to connect it to the moon phases. This is when your primary sex hormones, being estrogen and progesterone, are at their lowest point in the entire cycle. Your body really at this point wants to be quiet, slow, peaceful, and loving during this time. It's like winter time. What do we want to do in winter time? We want to be inside. We want to be cozy. It's dark outside a lot, so we're not really doing a whole lot of outdoor activities. We want to be inside. So think about your inner winter is also that. You wants to be inside. It wants to be kind of tucked in and cozy and quiet. So a healthy menstrual phase is going to last about 3 to 7 days, with the heaviest days kind of being at the beginning. Typically for a lot of women, it's the heaviest on day 2, closer to the beginning, and then it starts kind of tapering off as you progress through the week. You most likely are going to be experiencing lower physical energy because your body is focused on letting go of last month's uterine stores, which is your endometrial lining, and that's what's coming out of you when you're bleeding is your endometrial lining. It's the lining of your uterus. So your body's going to be focused on that. It's a big process and it takes up a lot of energy. You have a significant amount of blood flow that is coming to the area, so your belly might feel heavy. You might kind of experience some bloating or just like tenderness in your abdomen, all to be expected when you are bleeding, okay? But your body's diverting much of its blood supply down to your uterus because it's got to repair. It's kind of like all these like micro tears inside of your uterus, and it has to fix all that. Periods, because of this process of shedding the lining, periods are expected to be slightly uncomfortable, but they shouldn't be painful, and they definitely shouldn't interfere with your daily activities. Yeah, you're probably going to need to slow down because, hello, you are bleeding. I think we forget that, that if we were bleeding that much from our arm, like we wouldn't expect us to be doing strenuous activities. Um, if we were vomiting blood, we certainly, right? We wouldn't be expecting all those things. But for some reason, we're like, oh, if we're bleeding from our vaginas, then we can still go rock climbing and doing all of the things. Now, even though your physical energy may be low, this might be a time when you'll notice that your intuition or your spiritual energy is more elevated or more activated. This is such a beautiful time to pay attention to your dreams and your intuitive hits, or to practice like channeled writing or working with oracle or tarot cards. Like working with the moon energy or reflecting on the past year during winter, your menstrual phase is your body's built in pause point. It's inviting you to reflect on what went well throughout the month and to set an intention for the next upcoming cycle. This is like a little phoenix death and rebirth moment here. And you get to do it every single month. So it's your opportunity to like return to ash, to let go of what no longer serves, and to allow new, fresh energy to come into your life. But like I said before, wintertime is a good time for staying indoors and reading and quiet contemplation, and so is the menstrual phase. It's perfect for dreaming and reflecting and resting. It's probably not the best time to be taking a lot of massive action or planning a huge party if you can help it, right? If you're the one controlling it, planning it during your period is probably not the best time. So, if you do have a big event that you need to attend to or a big project at work that you have to work through, just make sure that you set aside some time for yourself to rest and to be alone, to give yourself that space for reconnection. And this is really, really important during this time. Are you looking for a space to raise your health and vibration with other Phoenix sisters? Then come join the Vibrant and Aligned Facebook community. Inside this free group, you'll find health tips, resources, and motivation to live a life full of joy, health, and vibrancy. Make sure to check out the show notes for the link to join or search Vibrant and Aligned on Facebook. I can't wait to see you there. So once you're finished bleeding and your energy starts to come up, that's when you move into the next phase, which is called the follicular phase. It's also known as your inner spring or your first quarter moon phase. So bring those spring thoughts to mind here. Is like, what is spring like? What is the energy of spring like? The energy of spring is kind of emerging, fresh and new, and everything's like kind of green. Things are melting. It's not really like super warm out yet, but there might be a lot of rain, but we start to see flowers. And that's kind of that energy that comes around during that inner spring. You feel like you've kind of re-emerged, and it's a great time to start planting seeds for the kinds of things that you want to accomplish. So around day 5 or 7, like towards the end of when your period is wrapping up or after you're done bleeding, that is when estrogen starts to rise as your ovaries and your brain start to work together to grow an egg for maturity for the month. Remember, whether you are intending to get pregnant or not, your body is always prepared. She does it every single month, which is fascinating. So your brain at this point is releasing a hormone called follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH. And it's telling your ovaries to grow a follicle, which a follicle is like the little sac that your eggs live in. And that FSH is going to tell that, group of follicles to start growing. So for the next week to 10 days or so, your ovaries are going to make that estrogen to help grow not only the egg and bring that to maturity, but it's also going to help to grow the endometrial lining, right? We just shed our endometrial lining, which the endometrial lining is like the precursor to the placenta. In order to grow a fetus, you need to have that. So the estrogen proliferates or grows the endometrial lining in your uterus. It's doing this all in preparation for ovulation, which is going to come up next. But this is like your preparation phase. So you, as the person who's experiencing these hormones, you're going to feel that rising estrogen, and you're going to start to kind of feel like a flower that's coming out of the ground in springtime. You might feel more optimistic, you might feel more physically energetic, you might be more focused, feel playful, social, or even a little flirty. I'll give you guys a little insider scoop today. I'm on day 12 of my cycle, so I am right in the heart of my follicular phase. If you're not watching on video, guys, I have this like pink bow in my hair. I'm wearing my pink fuzzy cat sweater. I've got my little bangs. I'm feeling super cute today. So, like that really fun and flirty energy. Yeah, definitely feeling it today in the heart of my follicular phase. And so, many women say they feel most like themselves during this time. I definitely like the energy of my follicular phase. I love feeling this kind of like fun little girly energy. So, and maybe you relate to that as well. But this is a great time of the month to start a new project or even go on an adventure or try out something new, like go to a new restaurant or try a new activity. If you're a mom, this is the perfect time to take your kids out for a fun activity, as you tend to have a little bit more patience and playfulness most accessible at this time for you. So, and your kids really respond to that really well. This would be a really great time for you guys to have a little bonding time. It is really, really important to not go too hard too fast, especially early in this phase, like right as your bleed is ending, because you can burn yourself out really quickly. I know sometimes after I get out of my period, I want to do all the things. So I really have to be cognizant and aware of my activities levels and to make sure that I let those kind of rise with me instead of me forcing and going around so hard right at the end of my period. We can actually be really tender at that time, especially around day 6 to 8. I call this day Baby Bunny Day. And as I started tracking my cycle, I realized that typically it was on day 7 for me. There was this day that I felt super fragile, like super tender, like a tender little baby shoot or a little baby bunny that could get squished really, really easy by outside things or by my internal self talk. So, this is why cyclical awareness and tracking can help, because if you know that that day is coming, then you can make sure that you take care of yourself on those challenging transition days, on those baby bunny days when you're feeling a little bit more tender. Now, once estrogen starts reaching her peak, you start to move into the next phase of your cycle, and that is ovulation. Technically, ovulation only happens on one day. You only ovulate like at one moment. But for those 3 to 5 days leading up to ovulation, that's what we consider the ovulation phase, also known as your inner summer or your full moon phase. That's when you will physically start to notice more cervical mucus, that slippery egg white discharge that you see when you wipe or in your underwear kind of mid month. Estrogen is what causes that, by the way. Estrogen, she's at her highest, she'll be all month long, and those high levels of estrogen tells your brain that there is an egg that's ready to go. She's reached a point where she is ready to ovulate and she just needs like her last bit of boost before she's ready to go. So your brain now releases a hormone called luteinizing hormone, or LH, And it does it in little pulses for about 24 to 48 hours. And it triggers your ovaries to release that mature egg, resulting in ovulation. The egg then leaves the ovary and travels into your fallopian tube. And at that point, she's sending chemical signals out to let the sperm know where she's at. And if she doesn't encounter and choose a sperm in the next 24 hours, then the egg is going to get reabsorbed back into the body. This phase, your ovulation phase, is the only time out of the whole month when you can get pregnant. Sperm can live for about 5 days inside your body, thanks to that incredible cervical mucus we were just talking about. Without it, sperm would die inside your body in a couple of hours. Your body is very hostile to sperm. It does not like it. And sperm is really fragile and very delicate. So it needs the nourishment and protection of your cervical mucus in order for it to survive, or else it would be almost impossible to get pregnant. So if you count the 5 days that the sperm can live in your body is hanging out waiting for the egg, plus that 24 hours that the egg survives after ovulation, that's about 6 days. And that's it. You have about a 6-day window to get pregnant inside your one cycle. The rest of the time, your body's closed for shop. Your cervix is closed. She's not making fertile cervical mucus, which means the sperm can't live inside of your body, even if they managed somehow to get there. But your cervix actually makes like a plug. We talk about the mucus plug for pregnancy. Well, you actually have a little mini plug every single month that you make in there that keeps everything, all the bad things outside of your uterus. So protects it from bacteria and also invaders like sperm. It doesn't belong in there because you don't need it in there. So your body at this point is primed to make a baby. Whether that's what you're doing or not, that's what's going on with your body. Some things you might notice during that time is that your libido is higher. Thank you to a little bit of testosterone that comes in. It kind of elevates a little bit during your ovulation. So you might notice your hair and your skin and your nails will be lustrous and supple. Again, thank you, estrogen, for making us look beautiful during our ovulation phase. And you might have a ton of energy. So much so that sometimes women who are sensitive to a lot of energy, perhaps women that are neurodivergent or just sensitive to a lot of energy, they might feel like their bulb is kind of glowing a little too brightly. They can feel a little burnt out or anxious or a little high strung. Personally, I experience that sometimes if I'm not careful with my ovulation energy. It can, I'm a very energetic person as it is, so sometimes that can be too energetic, leave me feeling very parched and dry and overspent. You also might feel more confident, creative, social, definitely wanting to be around people. Or you might even notice that you're feeling a little bit more mothering at this time. It is a fantastic time to plan a date. It's also a great time to ask for a raise at work or maybe even to speak up at a meeting. If you're planning on having a baby, like if you want to make a baby, well, then you need to be having sex during this time. Indeed, it's the only time it's going to work. So even if baby making isn't on the agenda, your body is really primed for sexual activity. It really wants to have sex at this time, right? So you might want to have some intimate time with yourself or a partner. If you're feeling up for it, then this is a great time to do that. From a spiritual energy standpoint, you might notice that it's a little different here than other times of the month. For me, I find that my ovulation time is a really hard time for me to sit in stillness. Like I struggle to meditate during my ovulation. So I like to go for meditative walks or do something that's a little bit more active for my spiritual practices at the time. Ecstatic dancing to some spicy kind of sensual songs. Ooh, girl, that feels good. But yeah, I also noticed like my card readings are different at that time. They tend to be less reflective and a little bit more action oriented. Just, if you're tracking your cycle and you notice that there's times when your readings are a little bit different or your uh your ability to sit in meditation, right? It could be hormonally related, it could be phase related. So when you track the cycle and you understand where you're at, now those things become normal. Like I know that now. I know that so that way I can make plans and I don't criticize myself for not being able to sit in meditation for a half an hour during my ovulation. So that's just like a benefit of understanding yourself a little bit more is because you get to know the times that are best for you to do the things that you like to do and to realize that it doesn't have to be the same every single week. Now, once that egg has been released at ovulation, now you enter into the longest phase of your cycle, and that is your luteal phase. It's also known as your inner fall or your inner autumn, depending on how fancy you want to be, what word you want to use, or like the last quarter moon phase. But like the fall time, it kind of has two different parts to it. Your luteal phase is actually going to be almost 2 weeks long, about 12 to 16 days. Again, that varies from person to person, but it's actually very consistent month to month. So, you're going to be in that phase for about 2 weeks, about half the month. But just like fall time, there's kind of an early luteal phase and a late luteal phase. So if you think of fall time in September is very different than fall time in early December, right? It's still technically fall time, but the temperatures, the what's going on outside, these are two very different things. Early September, the leaves hadn't even changed yet. And by December, it's snow, there's snow on the ground. So even though it's still technically the same phase. There is kind of two parts. And the more that you learn about your luteal phase and how that feels for you, the better you'll be prepared for those ups and downs. So remember that follicle that released the egg, right? For ovulation. That follicle that's in your ovaries is so magical, right? Literally, it like the egg bursts from the follicle and then it goes through this transformation. She like changes before your very eyes. And over the next 24 hours, she now becomes like this little mini gland called the corpus luteum. And that is what makes progesterone in your luteal phase. That's where this phase gets its name. It gets it from the corpus luteum. You also have a little bit of estrogen at this time as well, but not as much as progesterone. Really, progesterone's, this is her show. It's really her big moment here. So after about 12 to 16 days, if there's no egg that's implanted in your uterus, then the corpus luteum stops making progesterone and both estrogen and progesterone levels fall. They drop. They drop it like it's hot. And when that happens, your body lets go of the endometrial lining, right? Because there's no reason to keep it. There was no implantation. Don't need to make a placenta. Don't have a fetus. So it's going to let go of that endometrial lining. It cuts its losses and you have your period. Then the cycle starts over. Progesterone is a very important hormone in our bodies because she actually counteracts estrogen's growing tendencies. She helps to make sure that the uterine lining that we make inside our uterus, that the endometrial lining is not too thick. And she helps to make sure that that lining stays in place long enough for there to be a fertilized egg. Progesterone is kind of like a nesting hormone. She makes sure that your body is calm. She raises your body temperature. Almost it can go up a half a degree or even a full degree. It makes sure that your body feels calm and safe and ready to care for a growing fetus for the next 9 months. Okay, that's progesterone's job. But even if there isn't a fertilized egg, progesterone it's an essential hormone for your brain and your heart health. So when you're making enough progesterone, you actually feel calm. You feel a little bit introspective and you're able to finish up your tasks for the month. Progesterone, she's really sensitive. And if you're under a lot of stress or you're overextending yourself, your body will let you know that through things like premenstrual syndrome or PMS. You'll get mood swings. You might have really intense cravings, insomnia, anxiety, lack of focus, or headaches, other challenges at this time. From an energetic or a spiritual standpoint, the luteal phase is a really powerful time. It's when you reclaim your power. your truth and really your voice. So the first half of your cycle is kind of all about giving to the outside world. And the second half of your cycle is about giving back to yourself. And just like in the fall, when the trees drop their leaves, your body and your heart are asking you to release the expectations of the world and start turning your attention towards you. The problem is that most of our lives don't have space for things that are important to us. We're working for someone else, or we're taking care of all the kids all the time. We're tending to our relationships, our friendships, our family. We're caring for the house. And that leaves very little room for our desires, our passions, and interests. And every luteal phase, our moods and energy directly reflect the imbalance that we have in our lives. So if we're really experiencing a lot of premenstrual problems, that is a direct proportion to how much we are caring for ourselves. They are very, very closely tied together. I truly believe that this is why so many of us feel like shit during our premenstrual phase. Because yeah, it is connected to hormones and inflammation, but also most of us are rushing around taking care of everyone else and we leave ourselves out of the picture. And for half the month, we can handle it. We're kind of supposed to. That was the phase of the month when we're supposed to take care of everybody and do all of the things out here. But then in the second half of the month, when our bodies need more calm and nourishment and personal attention, we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and doing everything else and not taking care of ourselves. I love to think of progesterone like a deer. She scares off really easy. And if we're stressed out or we're not eating enough or we're not eating the right foods that support our health, or maybe we're working out too hard or not at all, we're burning the candle at both ends, we're not getting enough sleep, progesterone gets scared off. And so we aren't getting enough of the hormone that helps us feel calm. And then we end up having periods that are hard and heavy and crampy, and PMS ends up wreaking havoc on our relationships and our mental stability. I feel like this phase is the one that's least understood. And I know that I'm going to be talking about this phase a lot in this podcast because I think we struggle with this one the most and what it means to care for ourselves. But if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much PMS, then I encourage you to start thinking about, well, how do I take care of myself during that time? Am I taking care of myself? And if not, then that might be a great place to start to kind of help you feel better. This has been an incredible conversation so far. And if you're a woman who's looking to create her most vibrant life, tune in for just a couple moments. Have you been struggling with fatigue, cravings, or maybe you're seeing chaotic periods or just feeling disconnected from your body's wisdom? If so, it might be time to get some soul sister support. If you're ready to reclaim your feminine power and vitality, I invite you to come check out Sacred Phoenix Wellness. At Sacred Phoenix Wellness, I help soul-led women like you to lose weight, repair your hormones, and get your energy back so you can meet life's challenges like the powerful phoenix you are. Using a science-based, feminine-led approach, I'll support you to create a hormone-loving lifestyle that actually works with your body instead of against it. If you're ready to feel like yourself again and rise into a stronger, clearer, and more alive version of you, go to sacredphoenixwellness.com and apply to work with me. Your vibrant life is waiting. Now, let's get back to the show. That is the whole menstrual cycle in a nutshell. If listening to these explanations of the phases really intrigued you today, I encourage you to start tracking your whole cycle. You're going to hear me say that a lot on this podcast because being aware of your cycles and who you are throughout the month is the fastest way to bring more compassion to you and to your body. You have incredible superpowers available to you. And when you get to know your natural rhythm, you unleash those powers. You no longer feel like you're struggling all the time because now you're moving in rhythm. Your things don't feel like a struggle anymore. They're just a lot less challenging. You at least know what's up. And I feel like knowledge is most of the battle. Personally, I love tracking my cycle using Cycles Journal. This journal right here is amazing. I started using this journal back in 2022, and I got to be honest, it literally changed the course of my life. I've learned so many things about my body, and with that knowledge, I transformed my mental, my physical, and my spiritual health. Indeed, if I didn't start using this journal back in 2022, I would have never become a menstrual cycle educator. My health would probably still be in shambles, and I would have never lost that 45 pounds. I certainly would have never started this business. I would have never started Sacred Phoenix Wellness, and I wouldn't have started this podcast. I can directly tie this wisdom that I unlocked and the power and the confidence that I unlocked in my life to the work that I did with this journal, to getting to know my cycle and know who I am every single month. The wisdom that my womb and cycle revealed to me, it's impacted my life in massive ways that I feel like I cannot even explain. I will do my very best to emphasize that to you all. But that's why I share this journal with everyone. I talk about this journal with everybody, all my friends. And you're my friend. You're here. So if you do want to check out Cycles Journal, you can go to cyclesjournal.com. And if you are interested in getting the 2026 journal, you can use my coupon code. It's Sacred Phoenix. And you just put it in at checkout and you get 10% off. And that's, my gift to you for being here, being a listener. But for real, the real gift is the information and the understanding you get about yourself when you use this journal. If you are more of a digital gal, right? You can use a tracking app like Clue or Stardust. I love Stardust. It's a little bit more woo woo, it's a little bit more fun. Flow is another app that you can use as well. I do have to say that some of those apps really focus on negative symptoms rather than like the positive things, like feeling more creative or more playful or more excited or confident. And that's what I love about the Cycles Journal is it actually asks you those kinds of questions and it helps you track so you get to know the good things too and not just focusing on the bad things. So just keep that in mind. I can't say enough good things about the Cycles Journal. It's just so fantastic. This has been such a great conversation, sister. I love geeking out over this stuff. I hope you learned something today. And if you did, please shoot me a message on Instagram at Kori Rae Kovacs or on Facebook under the same name. But I would love to hear what you thought about this show. You are such an amazing human being. I love that you're here. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for you for spending time with me today. Stay tuned for the card reading. And until next time, remember, you are so worthy of living your vibrant life. All right. I cannot leave you without your card reading today. This is just a pink day, y'all. I have the Rose Oracle deck with me today, and I cannot wait to share what comes through today. Of course, take what resonates with you and what is supportive for you today, and leave what's not because I'm sure it is for another sister. So, what is the supportive energy for our Phoenix Perspective community today? And it is. Ooh. It is the crowning. This is about initiation, thresholds, birth, rebirth, and a seat at the table. Wow, what I love about this card is it is both crowning, as in, like, when a baby's about to be born, their head is, crowning. That's what we call it. When they're just about there, they're not quite on this side, but they're not still back in the womb. They're, on their way out. And then also crowning, as in placing a crown on one's head. This is such a potent energy of self-initiation and understanding that there are times when we are in the in-between and that they can be uncomfortable. Like, y'all, when the baby's crowning, it's pretty uncomfortable. But that there is a magical moment that happens when we claim the next phase of our life and see that we're letting go of what things used to be and stepping across the threshold into the next version of us. So if you find yourself maybe in a little bit of an uncomfortable position, maybe something, is going on in your life and you're not quite sure about your next step, or you're finding that things that fit no longer fit anymore, that perhaps you're just in this in-between space and it's initiation process that allows you to step into a grander version of yourself or a more aligned version of yourself. That's what I have for you today. Make sure you tune in for the next episode. Can't wait to see you there. And remember, you're worthy of living your vibrant life. Yes, I am celebrating you because you just finished another episode of the Phoenix Perspective Podcast. I am so grateful we got to spend time together today. It's really been a blast. If this episode lit up your heart or sparked something in your soul, please follow the show and share it with a friend who's ready to rise too. Until next moon phase, remember, you are so worthy of living your most vibrant life. See you next time.